In this video we will be adding an animation to our player. So if we select the player now, we don't have any climb animation on him, we only have the attack animation, so all these things. So we will have to create a climb animation and then add it to him. So we can actually go to the sprites folder and select the player somewhere, character, and then there is a climb animation here. So just select all the frames as we usually do and then drag them into the scene and go to the asset folder, animations, player, and call this one climb. When you have done that, then there will be a climb animation inside the folder here, the animation player folder, and we will delete the climb controller. There's also a climb sprite here inside the game, and we will also have to delete that one. When you've deleted that, you can select the player and you can go to window, and then you can take the animator down here. And in here we have a ground layer and an air layer, and we'll have to add one more layer called a climb layer, so that we can just switch to the climb layer when the player needs to climb the ladder. So click the little plus here when you have selected the layers and write climb layer. Inside the climb layer we will have to add a climb animation, so we have to go to the animations folder, there, go to the player, take the climb and put it in here. So what we will actually have to do is that we will have to go to the climb layer and set the weight to 1 from our code, so that the player will execute the climb animation when he's on the ladder. When he jumps off the ladder, we'll have to take the weight off and put it to 0, so that he isn't climbing anymore. And basically we'll just keep everything like this, and the only thing we'll need is actually that that little climb animation in there. We don't need to do anything else. So now the layer is actually ready. But we'll have to trigger this layer from our code. So when you have done this, we'll have to open up the code again, and we'll have to add some more things to our use ladder function here. We'll have to add a weight, so we can make a comma here and say int weight, layer weight. And here we'll have to say player.instance.myAnimator.set layer weight. And then we'll have to select the layer index and the weight of the index. So the layer index is 2 because this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. So we select this climb layer, and then we set the layer weight to 1 so that we are climbing. So we set layer weight 2 to the layer weight we're giving in as a parameter here. So if this is 1, we will start climbing. If it's 0, we will stop climbing. Here we need to start climbing, so we need to give it 1. Up here we'll need to stop climbing, so we can give it a 0. There we go. And there's somewhere else here. On trigger exit we will stop climbing, so we will give it a 0 as well. So let's try to see what happens here. Play the game. We press E, and then he starts climbing right away, as you can see here. So now he's just playing this climb animation in a loop, right? And we would like him to stop moving when we are not moving, and then only move when we are moving up and down or left and right. So to do this, we will also have to get back into the script here, and we'll have to set an animation speed. So as an extra parameter, we can say int anim speed. So we can say player.instance.myAnimator what's it called? It's called speed equals anim speed. So if we set the speed to 0, well, then we should start climbing on the ladder. If we set it to 1, then we're jumping off the ladder. So here we start climbing, the speed is 0, we're not animating. Up here we stop climbing, so the speed is 1, and the same goes for this one down here, speed 1. Let's save this. So now we should stop moving on the ladder. So he stopped moving, as you can see here. and he starts animating again when we jump off the ladder. So now we have stopped the animation. Now we will need to read the input and make him move according to the input from the keyboard. So to do this, we will jump to the player script instead. So let's go to the player script, and then we'll find the spot where we are moving him here on ladder. And here on ladder, we will have to set the speed according to the what is called the velocity of the A and D and W and S keys. So here we can say on ladder, of course. Here when we're on the ladder, we can say my animator dot speed equals, if vertical, let's actually just do the vertical first, so is equal to vertical. So now the speed is equal to the vertical value, but we would like to have a positive value. I think we might get an exception if we get a minus. Let's see what happens here. We can go up, and we can't go down because we're not allowed to give it a negative value here. So this actually, let's just explain the code. My animator.speed is the speed that we're setting on the animator, and if it's 1, well then he goes forward, but we're not allowed to make it minus when we're playing the game because of some functionality in Unity. So to make sure that we don't get a negative number, we can say mathf.clamp, not clamp, of course. We will need to do .abs, because this one gives you a positive number no matter what the input is. So if we get -1, then it returns 1 instead. So we'll just use that for our vertical value here. So let's try to save this, jump back here, and jump on. Now I can go up the ladder, and now I can go down the ladder. So what happens, as I told you before, it will set the animator speed according to the vertical input, and the vertical input is read out up here, so it's according to the axis. So when I press the keys, of course, it will translate that value it returns between -1 and 1 into something and set it to the speed. But we can't go to the sides. If I go to the sides, he's sliding like this. This looks kind of unrealistic, doesn't it? So we also have to use the horizontal axis here. So basically we need to make an if statement, or a smart if statement. Let's just make it short. So we say we set our speed equal to vertical if it's not 0. So if vertical isn't 0, then we say mathf.abs vertical. So then we just use the vertical value directly if the vertical isn't 0. If it isn't 0, well then we're pressing a key. And if it is 0, then we say mathf.abs horizontal. So if the vertical is 0, well then we can check if we're using the horizontal axis and use that instead as the speed. So let's try here. We climb the ladder, and we can go up, and we can go down. And if I stop moving up and down, I can go left, and I can go right here. So now he is animated on the ladder when we go up, down, and left and right. So I hope this one is understandable, right? We could also make an if statement that says if vertical is 0, then we use horizontal. If horizontal is 0, then we use vertical. But this is just a one-line way of writing it, right? Because we look at this condition: is vertical different from 0? If so, then we use this part of the statement. If this one is false, then we use this part of the statement and put it into this part of the statement. So if we jump back into Unity and try to play the game again, you'll notice there's a few bugs we'll need to fix before we're actually done with this. Let's see. First of all, this is the ladder. It's standing right here, and I'm just jumping through it. You'll see that he hits the ladder and falls towards the ground here, right? He jumps, and sometimes he's actually hitting the ladder here, which we're not interested in. So the reason that he's hitting the ladder, I think, is because that he thinks the ladder is a ground layer. So to make sure that he doesn't land on the ladder because he thinks he's on the ground, we'll have to make sure that the ladder is on another layer. So we have to select the ladder, click on the layer here and add a new layer, and then write a layer called ignore collision. Not ignore collision, not ground. It's called that instead. So we select the ladder and select the layer to be not ground. So everything the player shouldn't be able to land on, we can put as the layer type not ground. If we select the player here and we go to his what is ground here, I hope you can see this from my webcam, but there is something called what is ground. It's called mixed right now, and there's lots of things checked. The only thing that should be checked here is the default layer. Everything else should not be checked at all. So remember that the only thing that should be checked is the default layer. So if we play the game now, we jump through the ladder and he just passes through it. So now he's not landing on the ladder anymore when we're jumping on it, because he doesn't think that it's ground for him. There we go. And there we go. So that was one of the bugs. Another bug is the fact that if I jump up and press the E button, you'll see that he just slides up the ladder and goes to the top here, right? And if I stand on the ladder now and press the E button, he will go upwards to the top like this. And then he will keep jumping here. So these are actually two different bugs. First of all, we need to make sure that we can't press the jump button when we're on the ladder, because if we do so, then this happens. So let's fix that one first. To fix this, we will have to go to the player script, and somewhere in the player script we will have to make sure that we can't do this if we are on the ladder. So inside the handle input.get key down key code space, we'll have to say and on ladder false. So make an exclamation in front of on ladder, because we don't want to be able to jump when we're on the ladder. So if we save this and we go back in here and we jump up, let's just use the ladder here and we press the space, then we can't use the ladder anymore. We can't jump up when we're on the ladder. When we jump off it, everything is fine. But there is still one bug. If I jump and press the E button quickly, then he goes upwards like so. So we also need to fix that one. So when I stand here, jump press E, well, then he just slides up the ladder. So to fix this, go to the place where we're moving the jump inside the handle movement. There is an if statement that says if jump and rigid body velocity is zero. Here we also say and on ladder, so that we can't do this if we are on the ladder. We save this and we jump back to the game. And we jump press E, and then he stops, as you can see here. So now you can't do that anymore. But there is still one bug we'll have to fix. If we select the air layer, for example, you'll see that we are pausing our animation when we are climbing. So our landing animation right here is not playing until I start moving, and then it finishes. So basically, when I stand at the ladder, I jump and press E, it pauses the takeoff animation, which means if I go off the ladder right now, it will jump when I get off right away like this. And I'm not interested in that. I just want to fall off the ladder. So you can see now it's default state, and it's like following my progress here when I'm climbing the ladder. So I can get some weird bugs here because I'm pausing my animation. So we need to make sure that when we climb the ladder, we go out of the landing animation and out of the takeoff animation, so that it doesn't jump when he gets off the ladder if we press the E button right away and jump off the ladder, like so. To fix this, we will have to do something in the air layer here. We'll actually have to add a new parameter. So if you select the animator and select the air layer, then you can right click on takeoff, make transition back to the default state, and then we can add a new parameter on the plus button, and it's going to be a trigger. We simply gonna call it reset. When we have set that reset thing, we will have to make it trigger from takeoff to default state. So we can remove the exit time, we can remove fixed duration and set this to 0, and then press the little plus here and select the reset as condition from takeoff to default state. And here we have a default state to landing, and that's fine because we would like to go from default state to land, or we would like to go to the landing when we jump off the ladder, because when he falls off the ladder, if I could find my place here, when he falls off the ladder, we would like him to be in the fall animation, like so, instead of being in an idle animation when he falls off. So we also need to trigger this land trigger from our default state. When we go from takeoff, it will go to the default state, and from the default state it should go to the landing state when we jump off the ladder, like so. So we don't jump off, but we jump down. Let's do one thing at a time then. From the takeoff state to the default state, we will have to go to the ladder script, and in here we'll have to make a trigger somewhere. We'll have to call a trigger, and this means that we'll need to add a trigger here called string trigger, and in here we'll have to say player.instance.myanimator.set trigger. Did I misspell that totally? Yeah, I did. There we go. So now we are triggering our trigger when we use the ladder. So we need to trigger the correct trigger. First of all, when we jump off the ladder, or when we jump on the ladder, I mean, we need to call the reset trigger. So we call this trigger called reset, and this will trigger this reset trigger here. So we go from takeoff to the state over here. And up here, we'll have to trigger the land trigger actually. So, comma land, because we're jumping off our ladder. If we're on the ladder, we're jumping off the ladder, and then we need to trigger the land trigger. And the same goes down here. When we are exiting the ladder, we also need to trigger the land trigger here. If we save the script and jump back into Unity, you'll notice that he falls off the ladder correctly now, because when we jump to the ladder and press the E button, it transitions from the takeoff directly back to the default state here. So if I jump all the way up and grab here and go off, then nothing happens anymore. So now everything works fine. But as you just saw, there is a bug here. Reset is triggered, and when I jump off the ladder, reset is not reset. So when I press the jump now, he will jump in idle, as you can see here. And this bug happens when you jump on the ladder, press the E button, and press the E button quickly again. Let go and press again. So if you fall off the ladder and grab it again, reset is still triggered. And when you jump off and try to jump again, you jump in idle animation. And that's not something that's very looks very good in our game. For example, if you jump over here, he'll land like before he actually hits the ground and everything. So we'll have to do something to fix this little non-jump animation bug. This bug, we will have to add some functionality to our animation behaviors. So go to the animation behaviors folder and find the land behavior. In here, we will have to find the on-state exit. On-state exit is called when we transition from a state to another state. So here it would be a very good point to reset our reset trigger. So basically we have to say animator.reset. If I could hit the buttons, reset trigger, reset. So here I am resetting my reset trigger when I'm in the land behavior, which means when I'm falling to the ground, and I'm stopping to stop falling when I hit the ground. Well, then I simply reset the trigger. To make sure that we don't get any bugs when we jump and we land on something on top of us, we will have to go to the behaviors and take the jump behavior as well. And inside the exit on the jump behavior, you also have to say animator.reset trigger, reset. Now we're resetting both the trigger both places. So now when we play the game, press E and E again, then it will reset when we hit the ground here, as you can see. So we have the bug here now, reset trigger is triggered even though we are on the ladder. We jump off and it gets reset right away when we hit the ground. So we don't have these problems anymore with the reset trigger being triggered while on the ground here. So now we have a ladder we can jump onto, climb up and down. We can jump off the ladder in the top, click it again to climb down. And that's basically it for this ladder video. If you test this out and you find some bugs, then please write a comment about it and I will add a video that fixes the bug, of course. Just make sure to describe the bug thoroughly so I can see what's wrong and describe exactly what you're doing when the bug happens, so that we can fix it. Also, keep coming with requests to the game. It's always good to have a lot of ideas. I'm kind of running out of ideas for this platformer, so it's always awesome when you guys come up with them. I think the next thing I'm going to add is maybe some moving platforms, and I will maybe add a handle or something that can trigger a platform so it starts moving. It's going to be something like what we're actually doing right here with the ladder. We're moving to the ladder and using it, but we'll be moving to the handle and then using it. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to the channel and share my videos if you really like them. Also, you can support me, and your support is very, very important to me. So you can support me on Patreon page. If you support me on Patreon, you can get all my projects that I've made for these tutorials or any of my other tutorials. And you can also get private tutoring. If you don't want to support me on Patreon, you can also support me by getting this project or any of my other projects by clicking the link in the bottom of the screen right now. So thanks for watching.